Survivor's ready.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said Russell Feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to climb you. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan, this is Tony. Hey, happy Halloween, Tony.
Happy Halloween.
Is there anything more scary to you than having your Survivor draft just completely tank?
I just assume Sam's going
done.
next. Like that seems like the only possible solution is Sam's up out of here now. In which case, honestly, it's more impressive that I called 4 in a row. Is that 4 in a row? Like I feel like I should get more credit for that, honestly.
I'm pretty sure there was a gap between
Yeah, there was.
Keyshawn and
It was
Rome.
in between Keyshawn and Rome. Yep. That would have been impressive though, and you know it would have been.
It would have been impressive. Yeah, and the thing is, like, Sam's a possibility. Like, we got a little foreshadowing that there might be some people coming after Sam pretty soon. Like, not gonna lie, part of me thought that the other team in this episode was gonna lose because that was the majority of the pre-challenge talk was this, like, hey, I think I need to get Sam out. So, I don't know. I don't think it... We'll see, but it's impressive nonetheless how bad of a draft you've had. That's for sure.
And you're diving into that right away. It's wild how quickly Andy bought into, like, oh, Sam turned on me. Like, there was no, like, oh, he might be lying to me right now to cover his tracks. He, like, pretty quickly, like, it felt like he was sold on that idea that Sam was lying to him from Soul faster than he should have been.
Yeah, I guess that is. I didn't really think of it like that, but that is a very solid point because basically that was Soul's, like, only defense because he had to come up with some sort of alibi from the fallout of Last Tribal, being the only person, I believe, to write down Andy's name. Is that correct? I think
2 people wrote down Andy's name.
Was it Rome,
check.
perhaps? Or no,
Sue
Rome
also did.
wrote down Sam's name. That's what happened.
Sue
to that
wrote
one.
it down. Why is Sue not in trouble for writing down his name?
Yeah, no, that's I had that thought watching the episode. I was like, I'm pretty sure Soul wasn't the only vote, but yet he
No.
was the one. Well, actually, no, I do remember now because Teeny worded it as if Soul's vote was the only known vote for Andy. I think that's how it was worded. So I guess the assumption is, like, there's 2 votes. We know one of them is Soul. I don't know how they knew that, but
I mean, it probably was decided by the group that they had to have a backup, and like that was discussed by the group. They had to have backup, and it was picked as Andy.
yes,
Whether or not Sam was the one that decided that, honestly, I'd have to go back and watch the tape. But he definitely was okay with it. He allowed that to
yes.
happen.
So from what I remember,
Because we talked about that last week.
yes, and so someone else brought it up, and basically it was the other 3 Yellow Tribe people there, being Rachel, Sierra, and Sam. And Sam was kind of the first one who was like, yeah, if it's Andy, it's Andy, and they all kind of agreed. So it definitely wasn't Sam leading the charge from the way we saw it, but he signed off on it, which, is there a big difference, I don't know. Like, does it actually matter if he initiated it or just was okay with it? Like, either way, Andy felt betrayed, right? But yeah, I think that's a solid point that you made. I didn't think about that. Like, why did he take Soul's word immediately without even, like, fact-checking it with anyone?
And we never know, like, what vibes they're getting from these people. Like, he might have been thinking that anyways, and then Soul just happened to confirm what he had been thinking. But from what we've said, that's not, like, Sam has been his biggest advocate. And so it's one of those where, like, we just have so much more information. It's like, oh, that's tough to see him just, like, giving up on him.
It's tough to see, but I'm kind of excited to see how this goes. Especially the team up with Genevieve, who I still cannot get a read on what kind of player she is. Because she does nothing. She still claims, like, this episode, she claimed, like, well, since Rome was my number 1, like, I still think we have seen 0 evidence of that being true, other than the 2 of them saying that in confessionals. That's the, like, I
Is it
refuse
just
to believe they have a
they
relationship.
they didn't have time to throw in the like those two connecting and talking for the first time, because that's where we get these close ally groups. Is like, okay, we saw Caroline and Sue talking like day one. We saw Sam and Sierra talking day one. So we just didn't have that initial touch point between just the two of them. Is that what you feel like we're missing?
I guess so, because it's just like anytime you have a duo or like allies, you at least see conversations between them. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think there's
That's
maybe
true. You
one or
haven't seen
two,
any, yeah.
maybe one or two where they're like checking notes or being like, okay, so this is the plan. Okay, so we are going for like this person. I don't know. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like so bizarre how much they're like pushing this narrative of like, oh yeah, well Rome was my number one, and it was like you're saying that, but yet it didn't seem like you had any hesitation to drop him. In fact, you might have been pushing him more than other people. So I don't know. It's very bizarre, but I I'm all that to say like I don't know how to read her as a player. And so now that
No.
she's apparently like buddied with Andy, who I don't know, like they're much more believable of a duo than her and Rome, but like where does this go? I have absolutely no idea. It just feels like these are two players that like I have no one to compare them to as far as like previous archetypes, you know? Like they just feel like wild cards. I'm like anything could happen, and so I'm kind of excited to see like if they can make this season interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like going into what everything else that happened, like Tuku, the Blue Tribe won't be as big of a threat because they lost somebody, and so we're gonna get to see that play out sooner because there won't be
Mhm.
this like team up to just try to take them out. Which I was a little nervous was gonna happen because that's just not interesting. And I didn't think at any point, honestly, I was like Rachel's probably she might go, but I feel like she won't because that's just it's less entertaining, which isn't a good reason for me to feel like that's what's gonna happen. But that's where I was at. I was like, I just don't think she's gonna be the one that goes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't, and again, I don't know why that was. It just feels like it's never that easy or obvious. I'd be curious, like what the statistics are when it comes to, because like I mean, essentially this was pretty much a tribe swap. You know, like I think that's the best way to compare it to, um, where it's like you get this blending of three different tribes into a new tribe, and they go tribal council. So it's like when you have when you look at the numbers of a tribe swap and you see, okay, the majority comes from this original tribe, and here's the outsiders. How often does that majority's tribe actually stick together? I feel like it's relatively low. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, and again, this is just my gut reaction from like what I remember, but like it feels like more often than not, it is the minority that somehow finds a way, and the majority tribe uses this as an opportunity to get out people they wanted to get out.
Yeah, and I think if you looked at the numbers, when there's a majority tribe in one of the groups, that's because that tribe probably had a lot of numbers to begin with. And then it comes to the point where it's like these people have probably been begging to vote each other off for a while. And so now's their
Mhm.
chance and they have somebody to use to do that. And that's just the nature of the game. There's going to be more people, so it's more likely that a clump of them are on one tribe.
Yeah.
But ultimately this time they didn't have a choice. Like Rachel dipping, yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't. They had to turn on one another. Do you think that they would have turned on one another if she had been there?
You know, that's something I've been thinking a lot about because I think the way that it was edited, it at least made us want to believe that that's what they were going to do to make the reveal of the advantage so much more shocking.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's actually probably true, and here's why. So, like, ultimately, you know, like we saw Tiana go home, okay, to a unanimous vote, other than herself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one actually ended up voting with her, and I think part of why that is I think once Kyle realized that Caroline wasn't gonna vote with them, he probably just jumped ship, right? Like, okay, I
Oh,
can't do this
absolutely.
again. I need to stay in the majority because I've already done this before. You know, so I think I don't know. I'm led to believe because the alternative to voting out Rachel was to vote out Gabe. Like Gabe wasn't pitching Tiana as an alternative to Rachel. Like his plan was
Yeah.
always Rachel. So in my mind, I don't think Caroline was ever going to vote out Gabe. So
Yeah.
I think Tiana probably realized that, and so they were just going to go for Rachel.
Mhm.
But I don't know. That's my hunch.
Yeah, I think I'm in the exact same place. I think, ironically, the person from that tribe that we heard the least from was the one who decided that vote more than anybody else. Because I think more than anybody else on that tribe, Sue seems to be running the game. Like there was no chance Caroline was ever going to vote against her. Gabe made a comment that
Right.
he can control Sue. I don't know if he's controlling Sue. I think Sue is controlling him more than anything. And so like those two were never gonna go against. Like Gabe was never gonna vote for himself. Obviously, Carolyn was never gonna go against. Like she would have to get Sue's blessing to do something like that because that's the person she wants to play with. So the only chance that you really had to get Gabe was if it was interesting because Rachel said she got it like 20 minutes before they left for tribal. She got this advantage.
Yeah.
So there wasn't enough time to pull Kyle and Tiana aside and be like, "Hey, I have this block of vote to use instead." So she kind of had to use the safety without power.
Well,
Just to
okay.
make sure this. Go ahead.
Question about that. Did she get to choose, or did Soul decide for her?
Oh, interesting. That's a good
Because,
point. He definitely could have chosen for her.
well, but here's why I ask, and I guess I should have looked this up. Maybe I'll try to look it up now. Because when it was first presented to him, I thought that she would get to decide. Like he gives it to her,
Mhm.
she decides. But when she read it off, it almost sounded like somebody gave me this advantage.
Yeah.
So I guess that could still be either way. Let me try to see if I can find anything real quick on it. I
So
don't know if you
team
had...
was given the winning team was given a chance to search for an advantage that allowed them to give either of two advantages to one of the losing members, who would then play the selected advantage. So yeah, he just gave her safety without power. So the
See,
vote blocker wasn't
yeah.
even an option.
And that's
changes it.
fascinating because I think coming from him who didn't fully understand the dynamics of what was happening there, like
Mhm.
if he would have chosen the other one, this I think would have looked a lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Gabe would be gone. I think there's no chance
Yeah.
they don't pull that trigger in that situation. But how are you supposed to know? That's one of those like, yeah, that's just the game. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Just the way that it was it was a cool way that it came together. It was a cool twist that he got to give that power, and it was like an interesting scenario for that to be necessary. And just the way it played out, I don't know. It felt very it felt cool and didn't feel like it was intentionally designed to work a certain way. Like you know what I mean? It didn't feel like production was doing too much or anything. It just played with a weird scenario in a very fun way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I think it's definitely walking a line, I think, for me. Because I think it is like a little, I don't know. Because like I think you're right. Like it's not like production set up these tribes in a way to like
Mm-hmm.
allow for this underdog story. I think that's just kind of the way it worked out. But it's almost one of those things where it's like, what was Soul's other option of who to give this advantage to? Like I don't think he had another option, right? I think like this was like the obvious choice unless he felt like he could not work with Rachel. And that's what I was thinking too. I was like, is there anyone else who might have found this and not used it on her? And I don't think so. I think if there was anyone on that reward who found it, I think every single person would have given it to her because like that just
Yeah.
feels like what you do because there is this like, okay, Tuku has the advantage numbers wise, so we have to help this person. So I think it is a little like I would have liked to see this twist happen when there wasn't such an obvious person to give it to. Like if the numbers were more evenly distributed, like we saw with the other one where it was like a 3-3 from their original tribes, that would have been fascinating to see like, okay, someone from Tuku have to choose like Lavo or Gata. Which one do I think who do I want to give this advantage to? So I think like that's the only, which again, production can't really control that part. But I'd be curious to see if they use this twist in a future season and have a different like I don't know, outcome with it.
Yeah, and I think they've used it in the past. Like they've had it before where you have to give something to the other tribe, for sure. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I think the fact that it was such like an obvious scenario shows me that like yeah, that was always going to be a twist, and that's how it was going to go, and just with how things were split, that's how it happened. It almost is like a check mark in the like, oh, this definitely isn't rigged category, which we don't need to have, but that was kind of a thing where I was like, oh, that's nice to know that like this could have worked better for them probably, but this is how it worked. And ultimately, I'm happy that Tuku would split up because everybody against Tuku just isn't interesting for a couple weeks if it's just all of them ganging up. So, except I guess that idol is still out there, so seeing that needing to be played might have been interesting.
Which idol? Sue's idol, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how the numbers go now for next week because, and I thought that was a valid point that, Tiana was bringing up as far as like, hey, it might be good to weaken us a little bit just for the sake of like, we're not the obvious targets moving forward. If we can get into the actual merge, I don't know where we're at with it, but like, week 3 of the merge or week 2, this was week 1 of the merge, right? Because last week was Earn. Okay. So like if we can get to week 2 of the merge and
getting to jury is part of it too.
Well, that, yes.
I think this is the last pre-jury.
Sure. Yeah, so I thought that was valid logic, which I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, that's not something people mention often when it comes to like, hey, let's eliminate some of our people so we're not the obvious target. But I think that's probably also some of this, new era meta that people are starting to learn, and there is that pattern where it's like, hey, some people that make it the farthest come from very small tribes at the merge. And it's actually, I'd be curious. Like at the merge, how many people you have from your original tribe, how far you're I kind of want to crunch those numbers because I feel like the smallest tribe almost never works. Well, maybe not true.
The smallest tribe has been pretty dominant, I feel like, a couple of times.
I think the 2 examples, you got the Tika 3, right?
Yep.
But then the other one I was thinking of was the Emily and Caleb. That didn't work out.
No. Yep. Yeah, that's a fair point.
So like I feel like that middle number might be the best one. I don't know. I'll crunch some numbers because that's like fascinating.
Xander and Tiffany and whoever, I feel like they went pretty deep in 41.
Yeah, I think I would want to focus on like the winner, like where did the winner come from? Although last season was the smallest tribe, so there we go. Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna have to really think about this one. Not worth diving into right now. I'm stopping myself because I am so tempted to spend too much time on this.
Like, it's a super interesting like, oh, we need to weaken ourselves. I think Carolyn had a very interesting response where she looked at Tiana and she's like, we're not the ones that they're gonna go for. And I wonder if that's true. Cause like I feel like we've seen it, and I'm not saying that she's like Kelly and was in season 45. But like Kelly wasn't like the big target on that tribe. Like Bruce was. There were some people who were definitely bigger targets, but she was the one that people took a shot at. And I wonder if Carolyn was a little too overconfident that she would be all right if that battle ever happened. Yeah. That was a concern that I had.
No, that is a good thought. I think I do like her logic in that, but only because I think it's not just like. Because I think sometimes like when it is like, okay, here's the top dog we need to get out. Like this is the lion, right? Let's weaken their side. Oftentimes it's like the number 2 person or like the person that's like maybe a solid vote that won't, So I think like in Caroline's situation, and even Tiana's at the time, rest in peace. But like you look at the rest of the people, like okay, let's say we don't want to go for Gabe right now. I think. And maybe it's just to us because we're watching it, but I think Sue's the obvious number 2 there, right? So, like, that'd be the person you'd want to get out to Weekend Gabe. But even after that, you got Kyle, who just won 2 individual immunities in a row, So, like, I don't hate her logic in that sense where I do think she has the lowest threat level on that tribe.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair way to put it ultimately. I just think you never really know because also one of the arguments that she had Rachel is apparently she thinks is the biggest threat on the island in the game, which is
Yeah.
similar to Erica from season 41. Which I don't think I'm not saying Rachel's gonna win the game, but that was like kind of a thing where it's like, is she the biggest threat? And of course, there's always the like, you want to make them seem like a big target, so you say things like that to make things go the way that you would like them to go. So I don't know if it's a mixture of that, if they actually see Rachel as this massive threat. She's definitely not the glue that held that tribe together. Like just a couple of the things she said were just from what we've seen categorically incorrect. And so it was interesting.
I think there was even I think Gabe said something like that too at one point. Like he confirmed in the confessional as well how like Rachel is the big threat. So I don't know. Like that was just so fascinating to hear like two different people kind of have that sentiment where I'm just like, oh, I think you people are missing it. I don't know, guys. I don't know if that's
She legitimately voted against that. Well, maybe they don't know that. Maybe they don't know how the Annika vote went, but she lost that 3-1. She was the only one who voted for Andy in that situation.
right.
Like, maybe they don't review those or they don't share those as much, but I don't think she's the glue if that's happening.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I don't know. I'm fascinated to see, but I think we also haven't really got a good read on what her status is with the original Gata. You know,
True.
like I think last week, and I think Andy said it perfectly to Jeff when he was asked, but it was like last week was such a consensus. Like everyone's like, let's just get Rome, make it easy. And I think because this week didn't really allow any new dynamics or like tribe overlap. So I think, which, you know, is always how it goes in the new era. Like, despite this twist being technically different than previous seasons, we're still left with the same thing, where it's like week 2.5, 3, however you want to, you know.
Is it technically different?
Well,
I feel like they've done this every season, basically.
Well, other seasons, both teams will go to tribal, and 2 people will get
Oh,
voted
no
out.
matter what both teams were going? Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so
I missed that part.
Yeah, so Jeff worded this as like, we're doing something new this season, but it was essentially the same thing. The only difference is only one team went to tribal.
Yeah.
So my point being is like, we always reach this point where it takes 3 weeks of them all living together until we finally get to see where people actually align themselves.
And thinking about it, do we hate that? Like, do we hate them
I don't
having
know.
to like go through some weird mental gymnastics and maybe some luck before they can really like draw lines on where they're actually gonna fall? It gives them time to like they don't all come to the same beach and then immediately they're at each other's throats. It gives them maybe 3 or 4 days where they're with these people, talking to them a lot, and like splitting them up into like, oh, half of you aren't voting and half of you are, or you guys are split into 2 tribes again. Like it puts them in these new scenarios that makes them maybe more likely to ally with people who aren't the people that they started with. I don't know. I think I could go either way with it.
I would say I don't think these twists cause any or develop any new relationships. Like I don't think because you won this reward with this team, you're more aligned to them than you were with these other people that you already established something with. So I don't think it adds to that. I think in my mind, this is almost what this does is it prevents the possibility of having a boring 3-4 weeks of like, okay, we're just going to pick off these people. You know, I think what this does is it protects some people who might just get steamrolled by numbers, right? Because I think that's like, in my mind, that's always like the worst seasons is the one where it's just like clearly there's a dominant alliance. They're just picking people off one by one. Nothing exciting happens, right? I think what they're trying to do is add these twists and advantages so that it gives some power to like the minority. And in my mind, I feel like that's just almost kind of like a safe way of going about it. Because it's like if you remove that and just have everyone play for themselves, like it's high risk, high reward. The risk is that it becomes a
Mhm.
boring season, but the reward is like you could have a very entertaining season. Like last season, for example, we were complaining for weeks and weeks how boring it was, but then once they finally all started voting together, it was electric. I mean,
Yeah.
the second half of last season was some of the best Survivor I've ever seen, and I'm bummed out because we could have had that for another 2-3 weeks, but instead we had to split off into two teams, and we didn't get to see them work together.
And I wonder if those few weeks were so necessary for that, because
Mm.
man, even looking at the mergatory week, and I know how much you hate it, but hear me out. Looking at that week, they go into that knowing that the next week they're gonna split again, and then it's finally gonna be time to draw the line. So I feel like so often, instead of drawing those lines at that point, they vote together. For a couple seasons now, it's been like everybody's voting for Rome, everybody's voting for Caleb. Like there's been a couple in a row where it's just like we're all putting our votes on this. We're not voting by tribe lines yet. We're just picking someone who's the biggest threat and who everybody's okay with going for, and we're just taking them out. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's an interesting trend, at least through these past couple seasons. I'd have to look back to see if that's been a consistent trend. I don't remember who got voted out on that episode every time,
Right.
but
Yeah. No, those two, I think those two examples, and those are the two most recent seasons, so I think
mhm.
the two most recent seasons probably show the evolution of gameplay that has been based on players watching the new era. So those would probably be
Okay,
the
it
best
was
two
two seasons
examples.
ago. I skipped last season. I don't remember what happened last season.
That's a good point. Who was last season? Last season
Except
was
that was on every season. I'm looking right now. Was it Sifu?
No, because
Oh, it was
Sifu went.
Mariah. Big threat Mariah. 10-1. But that's another situation. 10-1. Everybody was just fine with, yep, we're getting rid of Mariah, all of us.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think initially my gut is anytime there's a majority or practically unanimous vote, that's not as exciting, you know? I would much rather
it's
see
the
a
least that,
split or
The tribal battle, I feel like, in a weird way.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's tough to know. And once you get to talking about would this season be the same if this rule was different? Probably not, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that's my gut reaction is I think this is just the safe way of doing it. This is a very we can make Survivor not bad. I think you minimize how bad it's going to be, but I think you also lower the ceiling in a way of
Yeah.
how electric it could possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just whatever direction you want to go. Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy with it. It has its ups and downs ultimately, and so that's a really lame way to end the discussion, but it has its ups and downs.
It has its ups and downs. Not taking a stance.
No firm stances here.
Oh boy. Geez. What else we got to talk about in this episode? We really flew through most of it. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else significant? We kind of talked about. Kyle just dominating, winning another individual immunity.
Yep.
Crazy.
Soul rising from the ashes of what I thought was certain, he was getting voted out for sure, and now he's making some moves. I feel like he acted out pretty well that he didn't find that advantage, and he found it without getting caught. Otherwise, I would have showed us him getting caught. So, yeah. Well, I'm curious to see if he tells Rachel that it was him or how he handles it going forward.
Wait, are you talking about Soul?
Yeah.
I said Kyle at first. That's fine.
I know. I responded with oh, and Soul.
Oh, I must have missed that part. I thought you were. It took me halfway through you talking. It was like, this isn't Kyle. That's my.
I think I did. I had nothing else. Yeah, Kyle won another challenge.
Okay, yeah,
I like
Soul.
Kyle.
It's going to be
He
interesting.
seems nice. I didn't have anything else to add, so I was like, oh, and
Great,
Soul.
great.
He was.
Yes.
He did
Okay.
some stuff.
Yes. I don't know if he'll tell Rachel if it was him. I mean, I feel like he should, right? Otherwise, what's the point?
It depends. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he should too. But will people around him think he's sneaky? Because that's gonna get out. There's
The
that
only-
you drop the bomb in the final tribal.
Well, yeah, I mean that is I think tough now. Now that he played it off as if he didn't know, that's tough to
Mm-hmm.
walk that back with somebody. I think initially like the only concern you would have is with the original Blue Tribe, right? Because that kind of ruined their plans. But outside of
And I
that,
think knowing that somebody was searching while they were all like resting at the thing isn't ideal as well.
yeah, and I mean Andy definitely got caught doing that, which
Mm-hmm.
classic Andy, just
Good old Andy.
making his making his alliance immediately regret working with him.
Yep. Yep.
That's a trend we see. I was fascinated by him writing all the numbers in the sand. I don't know. Like I don't know what that all meant, but there's something about me that like I do enjoy watching people visualize strategy like that. Even
Yeah.
if I don't get it, I'm like, how is your brain working that like you're literally like writing numbers here, there's a line, like what is going through your mind that this is
Mm-hmm.
helping you out? I don't know. I would love to hear his thought process on that one.
I don't even remember him writing in the sand. I wish I had seen that.
Yeah, it was like when he was like up early morning. That's like right before Genevieve came up to him because
Oh,
it
yeah.
was after Soul let him know about Sam, and he's like trying to like recalculate and like, okay, I got to
Mm-hmm.
figure out a new plan here, and yeah, so it was pretty funny.
Got to rewire the AI in his brain.
Is there anyone else we need to talk about? That's
I don't think so. I mean, we covered most of the people on the Blue Tribe, and
Yeah.
obviously Rachel. Outside of them, nobody really did anything major that we didn't mention already. Do you want to update us on confessional count?
How'd you know I had that pulled up?
Because that's your favorite thing.
Well,
and you
okay,
get
so
mad
who
when
do
you
you
forget.
who do you think had the most this episode?
Soul.
What's your gut? Soul was
No.
up there. Soul was in second.
Soul's in second. Then I
Yeah.
probably. Ooh, I'm gonna go Caroline,
No.
Gabe,
No.
Tiana,
No. It was Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Rachel, Soul, and then in third place was Andy. Those were our.
Oh, so just none of those ones that I named. I
Yeah, which
figured
is
it'd be someone from the Blue
shocking.
Tribe, but not really. That's weird.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Tiana only had 3 confessionals. It felt like she was like the star of the episode. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, the whole episode was her just trying to get Gabe out, but I guess not.
Yeah, I probably thought Caroline was the big one because she it was her decision that was pivotal. But interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think this is something I thought of recently? I saw a clip or picture of the confessional count.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to take like the week, what week is it of the season?
This was
Week
week
8
7.
confessional count, week 7 or week 8, and you were to take from like the top 4 confessional counts so far that season, how often do you think that the winner is in like the top 4 or top 5 confessionals?
Like
Do you
at
think
this
that's
point in the
something
game,
like it's gonna be one of these people?
I think it's probably pretty likely.
Yeah,
I could crunch. I mean, that's an easy thing to look up, right?
yeah.
I'm not gonna do it now. It's not good radio,
Well,
but yeah, I'll
yeah, we
I'll
would
look
never,
look
but
into that.
can you look in week by week, like, oh, on the 7th week, this is what it was for this season?
Yeah. I mean the images I always see, you probably have to add it up by yourself, but like you could just add those, which I guess that would take a
Okay, which
minute
we would
to.
never do because we never talk edit or anything. But
Yeah, no, but I mean, I feel like that has to be the case unless you're.
yeah,
I think the exception would probably be like Gabler, right? Because that was like an intentional misdirect by.
yeah. I think Erica might be another one too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
doing some funny stuff back then. I'm glad they went the more traditional route now. Kind of. Actually, I don't know. Because, like, well, Kenzie probably had a lot of confessionals last season, but only
yeah,
because
she
she was in the
definitely did.
beginning.
Yeah,
D maybe? I don't like. Was
he
she
had quite a
like?
bit, I feel like throughout.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, because I mean, if we're looking right now, the person with the most is Sam by like a decent amount. And then it goes down to Gabe and Andy, which are 3 very interesting.
Is Teeny up there? I feel like Teeny's up there.
Teeny's 4th.
And then is Sue up there?
it's Sue and Rachel are next.
Okay. 'Cause those
Yeah.
are the 5 that feel like they're the biggest people, the biggest personalities that we've been given, honestly, for me.
Yeah.
Andy, Gabe, Soul, Sue, and Teeny. Or Sam, Sue, and Teeny. I feel like those are the ones that it's like, ooh, I could see it being from these 5.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you there. Yeah, and unsurprisingly, I think the lowest is Caroline, Kyle, Sierra.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Once again, they went to tribal less than everybody, so that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's
So you
fascinating.
also have to factor that in. So there's no easy equation, but it's just an interesting thought. If I had to pick a winner today, just based on vibes, not edit or anything, am I allowed to say this?
Can I say this?
I think it's Teeny.
Why couldn't you say this? What do you mean? Why wouldn't you be allowed on a Survivor podcast to say who you think is going to win the game at this point?
We don't talk about edit, but I guess I clarified it wasn't because of edit. But
yeah, no, I feel good about Teeny, which is why I drafted her. That's just me.
yeah, see, I drafted the people that I thought were gonna do poorly. I thought we were doing golf rules.
Oh well, you did great on that one. That's for sure.
Thanks, man.
All right. Anything else we got to
Ready for
talk about
70
here?
I think that's all I got. We had the Traders 3 cast come out. I don't know if we would talk about that on here, but we
Ooh.
got some Survivor alum and Big Brother alum in that.
Was that like? Is that new? I feel like that was announced a while ago, wasn't it? Or was
I
this
think
like
there were a couple people
officially?
that I didn't expect to see. Like I didn't realize Brittany from Big Brother was on there. I didn't
Yeah.
realize and the other one, I knew all the Survivor people, like it's Tony, Rob, Jeremy, Carolyn, but then who's the other one?
Oh,
that I
okay.
was
So
surprised about.
today Alan Cumming was on the.
I didn't know Daniel Reyes was playing.
Yeah. No, I knew all that.
You knew
I-
all those? Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
surprising.
that was probably an unofficial. So I'm looking now. Today on like literally today, Halloween, Alan Cumming was on the Today Show and he announced it with the premiere date, which is January 9th. So this was probably the official announcement, but
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm looking now. Yeah, I mean
Well, I'm
everything.
excited to watch
I
it.
know.
No challengers, which is a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, that is interesting. No, we definitely texted about this, 100%.
I remember texting about the Survivor people. I don't remember
Well,
Brittany or Danielle.
maybe that's true, but we definitely texted that there were no challenge people. I remember that. That was
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right, Bob from Biggest Loser. That's hilarious. You ever watch Biggest
Hilarious.
Loser growing up?
No.
That was a big family show for us. Bob was one
Is
of like the
he-
trainers. You know, who was the
Who's
other?
one of the trainers?
You know Jillian Michaels? You know Jillian Michaels, right?
No.
No? Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. You're really out of the Biggest Loser universe.
Well, yeah, I've never watched it.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying.
Is she a fitness expert?
She was, yeah, so her and Bob were like the two trainers that would.
Gotcha.
It's dude, that's a fascinating show. That is a relic of a time. I mean, like literally, it was like these were big people. I mean, I'm talking like,
Yeah.
400 plus pounds, and the only way to stay in the competition was by losing more weight than the other people.
Yeah.
Just
which
like,
can't be healthy.
I mean, no, like you look now and they've gone back and like, looked
When you
into
first
how the people are
said somebody
doing.
From The Biggest Loser, I was like a contestant, and I was like, I wonder if somebody that kept off the weight, or if it's just going to be somebody who's still that big. I was like, wow, that'll be an interesting wrinkle. And
No, he was one of the traders, which is
gotcha.
which is very funny. Yeah, no, I'm excited for this, guys. Speaking of not Survivor LTV, have you started House of Villains yet?
No, I haven't. What's that on?
Peacock.
Is it just the second season now?
Yeah. So first season was
I'll watch
last
the
year.
first one and then watch the second one.
Yeah, you should. It's a
Mhm.
fun time.
I've heard good things. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm trying to think people you know. Wes is on it. Richard Hatch. Jesse from Big Brother.
Yep. Those are the
Mr.
three this
Spectacular.
year. Last year was Bananas, Fair Play.
And I don't think there was a Big Brother person last year. There was
I don't think so.
Omarosa. Omarosa was on it last year.
That's a Big Brother person. What do you mean it wasn't a Big Brother person?
Well, she's more of an apprentice person.
I don't know. I think she's more well known for.
That's just not
Celebrity Big
true
Brother.
because she was on Celebrity Big Brother, meaning she was a celebrity before she was on Big Brother.
No, I don't know about that.
Larsa Pippen's on this season, House of Villains.
Well, let's go. Add to the Pippin, Jordan, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, they talked about it because when she showed up, everyone's like, do you know who this is? They're like, who? Like, that's Scottie Pippen's ex-wife. Like, they were like, two of the villains were explaining it. I think you would like it a lot because it's very like stripped down. Like, there's a lot of scenes that are like almost behind the scenes, kind of like producers
yeah.
trying to get that because like it's literally the
love
biggest
that.
egos ever, and
Yeah.
it's like you constantly hear producers like, "Hey, stop it! Please come over. We gotta re-record that. Let's try again." Like, it's very funny. So it's like the villains themselves are just like so open about talking about each other on camera and stuff, and so like it's
Yeah.
very fun. So like hearing them explain who Larsa Pippen is to another one is just very funny.
That's great. There's I'm sure Wes and Richard Hatch and Jesse aren't all getting along well.
No. All I'll say is Wes and Richard Hatch are on different sides.
Love that. Love that. Richard Hatch, the original reality villain, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say so too. He is naked in this season as well, but
Tough.
does do that. All right, well, that's enough of that.
He must have that in his contract that that's okay.
I guess so. I mean, like when he showed up in the house, like everyone was just like, "Oh, do you know who this guy is?" Like he was naked all the time. Like that's all they were talking about with him.
Oh, yeah,
He talks very openly about going to prison because there's another. I think there's like a housewife that was also in prison too. So they were
Oh,
like
yeah.
talking about that, and it's very fun.
That's so good. Well, we should wrap up this podcast. I forgot we were recording. I felt like we were just talking afterwards.
Yeah, well, this is a little bonus content for people. All right, for more episodes, visit notgameallpersonal.com. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that's a podcast, really. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAP Pod. That's at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we will see you next week.
14 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.